In our last conversation, we sat with something most people never talk about. We looked at the graveyard, the quiet cemetery of things we once loved and quietly abandoned. We looked at what happens inside the brain when we quit, the wiring that weakens and the wiring that grows. And we talked about how to build the muscle of tenacity, that part of you that knows how to push through when everything inside says stop. But for some of you, a different problem surfaced. Not a fear of the work, but a paralysis in front of too many roads, all of them yours. You look at your life and see a dozen different versions of yourself, and every single one feels real. You are not afraid of the work. You are paralyzed by the choice. This is what psychologists call the scanner's dilemma, perfectly captured in one quiet sentence. I could do anything, if only I knew what it was. Society has a word for people like you. They call you a dilettante, a jack of all trades but a master of none. And the weight of that label is enormous, because it takes the thing you love most about yourself, your curiosity, and turns it into evidence of your failure. Today, we dismantle that carefully, piece by piece. For the last century, the world praised one kind of person above all others, the specialist, the eye-shaped professional, one deep pillar, one narrow field, one identity. This made sense in a world that behaved like a chessboard, where the rules were clear, where the patterns repeated, where depth was always rewarded. Psychologists call this a kind learning environment. Think of the golfer. The rules never change. The feedback is immediate. The path is visible. Now think of the firefighter. Every situation is new. The rules are unknown. The specialized knowledge you carried in might not apply at all. The hyper-specialist, in a wicked and unpredictable world, can develop blind spots, deep knowledge surrounded by a great unexamined darkness. The problem was never that the specialist path is wrong. The problem is when it becomes the only path, when it is used as the single measure of everyone. There is another shape many of us fall into, the dash, a mile wide and an inch deep, knowing a little about everything, anchored in nothing. But there is a third shape, the most powerful one for a mind like yours, the M-shaped professional, the polymath. Imagine your first deep pillar is data science. Your second is storytelling, and the bridge connecting them is built from everything else you've ever been fascinated by. Psychology, history, design. Suddenly, you are not just a distracted data scientist. You become the person who can take something impossibly complex and make a room full of people actually understand it. That combination is rare. That combination is valuable. The tool that makes this possible has a name: far transfer. A specialist uses near transfer, applying a skill to a similar problem, but a polymath sees the underlying structure in one world and carries it into a completely different one. The branching roots of a tree, the branching architecture of a database, the same geometry, seen by someone who is paying attention to both. A musician who understands harmony and counterpoint might look at a piece of software and see a more elegant way to build it. That is far transfer, the ability to hear the music, not just read the notes. And all those seemingly scattered interests you have gathered over the years, they are not evidence of distraction. They are your library, a personal archive of metaphors that no one else in the room will ever have. So how do you actually build this? It begins with a strategy called serial mastery. You cannot build all the pillars at once. That is what leads back to the shallow dash. You pick one pillar, you commit to it for a season, 6 months, a year, maybe 18 months, and you build it until it is strong. The question that stops most people right here is, which one do I pick first? And the anxiety of that choice is exactly what keeps the scanner standing still. The secret is to lower the stakes. You are not choosing for the rest of your life. You are choosing for this season. That is all. One candle, one direction. For now. A good first pillar is often the one with the most energy around it right now, or the one that can create the most stability in your life. Pick one, press it into the earth, and give yourself permission to be here, fully. You build it until you reach fluency, not world-class expertise, just the point where you can solve most common problems without running back to the instruction manual, about 80% of the way up. That is enough. When the curiosity in that area begins to settle, you make a conscious choice. This is not quitting like a dabbler, running from pain. This is strategic quitting. It is a graduation. You are deliberately choosing to begin building what comes next. Many of the great polymaths understood something quietly radical. Einstein worked as a patent clerk, a modest, low-drain job. And it was exactly that ordinariness that gave his mind the freedom to wander the universe. Your day job is not just a paycheck, it is a strategic asset. A low-drain job leaves you with a surplus of your most valuable resource, mental energy, which you can then pour into everything else you are becoming. Because here's what no one tells the scanner. Your mind is a high-output idea factory, but your working memory is a small workbench. If you never move the finished thoughts off the bench, there is no room to build new ones. And trying to hold it all in your head is a quiet recipe for overwhelm. The great sociologist Nicholas Luhmann published over 70 books in his lifetime. His secret was simple. He never tried to write a whole book. He just wrote down one idea on one small card, and then he connected it to another. Over decades, those connections grew into a vast web of knowledge that practically wrote the books for him. The system did the work. He just kept showing up, one card at a time. When you get fascinated with medieval architecture for a week, take notes. Put them somewhere simple, Notion, Obsidian, a notebook, and then let it go, without guilt. Because the obsession has been honored. It is safe now. It will wait for you. 3 years from now, you might be deep in a web design project and stumble across those old notes, and in one quiet moment you will see it. The structure of a cathedral is exactly the structure of this website. That is the moment of magic. But it only happens if you captured the dots so you could connect them later. You are not a dilettante. You are a bridge, the person who can stand between different worlds of knowledge and be the only one in the room who sees how they speak to each other. Just having a map for your mind changes something. The self-blame begins to soften, replaced by something quieter, a confidence that doesn't need to announce itself because it finally understands what it is. Pick your first pillar, not forever, just for this season. Build it with focus. Let the others wait. They will still be there. Use your day job as stable ground, not a cage. Let it be the patent office that gives your mind room to roam. And build a simple system to catch your sparks. Every fleeting obsession, every strange connection, captured, filed, waiting. You were never meant to master just one thing. You were meant to be the person who can see how everything connects. And the world needs more of those people. I'll see you in the next one.